Now, let's pivot a little bit and actually meet our MC and our panel moderator, Matthew Evilsizor. Matthew is a SAG actor and host, serial entrepreneur, and active member of the Orange County startup community. He is a dedicated leader, currently owns several local businesses, including a luxury coffee roastery called Conscious Bean, a search engine optimization service, several e-commerce products, and most recently, as the founder of ProPresence, where he and his team are working to elevate people's on-camera skills, presentations, and professional presence as we transition to a video meeting-based business world. Fueled by collaboration and creative problem solving, Matthew weaves honesty, dedication, care, and passion into all of which he is a part. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Hassan. Hassan is awesome. If anyone hasn't gotten to know Hassan, please take a minute, follow this guy. He's a good person. The more time I spend with Hassan, the more I like him. He's just great. So I think we are now opening to all of our panel here, and I am very excited for this panel. We put this together because we really wanted to cover a wide cross-section of different business industries so that we could ask the same questions and get unique insights from a bunch of different mentalities and thoughts and mindsets and industries. So I'm really excited to have 6 different people who cover a handful of things. We have TK Kinion from Learning Fuze Coding Academy, who we just mentioned, Chris Daden from DadenLLC, it's a software production company, and Joanne Lee from DeviceAlliance, Reina Rose from the Soul Nutritionist, and Julie Theis from julietheis.com, and John Russo, professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at Irvine Valley College. So this whole thing is just going to be a series of questions. I want to get your insights and have some authentic back and forth. Hopefully the goal will be to see how you see it specifically from your industry experience and perch perspective. So without further ado, I'm going to give the panel a couple of minutes, maybe like 2 minutes each. Introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us a bit about what you do, and give us some insights so that we can really know how to best connect with you and move forward as with the correct industry insight, so we can all tie everyone together.
Would you like to tell us who's going first?
Sure. It's you, because you spoke up. Look at how that goes.
All right. My name's Reina Rose. I'm the host of the Roku TV show Soul Nutrition. I do some coaching personally and corporate, as well as I've worked in the health and fitness industry since I was a 19-year-old starting my first fitness business in Orange County. And so I've been very much on the entrepreneurial path since then, and as well as worked in the aviation industry. And that industry, especially actually in the private side, is starting to really boom. So I might actually be doing some more things in that industry than I thought. But I primarily focus a lot on people's inner wellness and being able to really thrive in whatever business they are doing. And so that always comes from a place of focus, and I help people to really be at peace and focus with what they're doing so that they can move forward to their goals. Thank you. Matthew, you're on mute.
TJ, where are you at, TJ? And thank you, Reina.
How's it going? Thanks, Matt, for the introduction. My name is TJ Kinion, and my title is the program manager over at Learning Fuze, but it's kind of a catch-all category. Most of my role focuses and kind of is around the career services side. We're a coding boot camp that has both full-time web development classes as well as part-time classes, and also fully remote options as well. And recently we released and started a UX UI design course for people who find themselves inclining towards that a little bit more. And part of the commitment we make to all of our students is that we're going to help them navigate the job search process. And that's typically one of those things that unfortunately is not usually a ton of fun, and a lot of places kind of leave that kind of as kind of a secondary side, and it gets skipped out, unfortunately. So put a lot of effort into that. Super involved with the OC tech community. I'm also the organizer for Startup Grind Irvine. I'm on the board for Elite OC, which is another networking group. So over the course of today, you'll probably hear me mention networking a few different times, as some of our previous panelists, and, Brian was previously talking about. And then when it comes to kind of connecting with me, LinkedIn, all day, every day, we're going to hear a little bit more about that too as well. So excited to be here, excited to talk technology, excited to talk education, and then as a lot of people are experiencing kind of going through a career search. So got some tips and tricks there as well.
Thank you, TJ. Joanne, let's hear from you. Hi.
Hello, my name is Joanne. I am a PhD student at UCI. I'm studying biomedical engineering, but I'm here to represent DeviceAlliance as their Young Professional Committee Membership Chair. DeviceAlliance is a nonprofit that hosts networking events centered around medical device technological advances, companies, any individual who's within that space. And we also have opportunities for you to listen to informative panels, webinars on sort of the changing regulations within medtech. So really, we are a central hub specifically serving the OC area, which is amazing because OC is actually one of the hotspots for emerging and medium-sized types of medical device companies. And we really want to foster collaborations, connections, industry knowledge. And this is a great opportunity, or the organization is a great space for individuals who are starting to either become more relevant within this space and want to get to know more people, or are looking for job changes or to get their feet wet. So it's a space for pretty much what we're talking about here, which is networking and making a name for yourself. So DeviceAlliance welcomes all individuals from all sectors, and that includes entrepreneurs, anyone in sales, marketing, regulatory affairs, the engineers, scientists, and emerging students who want to enter the field like myself. And we also have a very special section for young professionals who need that extra guidance and mentorship from the veterans of the field. And we're DeviceAlliance.
Thank you, Joanne. John Russo, tell me about you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Russo. I am a professor over at Irvine Valley College, and I echo so much of what Brian shared and all the wonderful things about community college. I teach business management, entrepreneurship classes over there. I head up the entrepreneurship program, so really what some of my focuses are, my passion, what I enjoy is working with students and taking the experiences that we have and really helping them to find what their passion and maybe those businesses they want to start and what those might be. I'm also an entrepreneur myself. I owned a pizzeria franchise for a number of years. I've started a couple of other small businesses kind of throughout my path. I did also spend about 20 years in corporate America, so sales, marketing, management in a variety of different industries. So it's been great to kind of see both sides of things from a corporate standpoint to kind of a do it on my own and entrepreneurial standpoint. But now really what I enjoy doing, and I know everybody is talking about networking, and my passion is how can I help young students that are really trying to find their way to experience things, to get through these challenging times, and connect them and help to network them with you, if you will, with other individuals that are willing to help out. And that's really what I get a lot of enjoyment out of. So that's my full-time job is over at Irvine Valley College.
Yes, like the topic says, how do we help each other rise? That is such a core thing for me. Holding each other up is the only way we are going to progress. So again, thank you all for being a part of this. Julie, I can see you. How you doing? Tell me all about you.
Hi guys, my name is Julie Theis and I work as a business coach and consumer psychology consultant. I'm also a digital course creator. What I primarily focus on is helping entrepreneurs grow, start, and scale their business online, really focusing on helping them increase their sales and sign on more clients. The pillars of my business is really combining business strategy and psychology mastery together. So the piece of that I'll probably be speaking a lot on today about psychology mastery, I break it down into two parts. One, that's psychology mastery of yourself, because we go through a lot in entrepreneurship, just handling the roller coaster, especially right now, but also the psychology mastery of what makes people buy, how they do, when they do it, and why they do it. So probably be speaking a lot on that. I've been lucky enough to be an international speaker speaking on some of these topics, as well as I've had hundreds of clients in the last year go through my courses teaching them how to sign on more clients, how to increase their income, how to master their finances while in business. So I'm really excited to be here. If you guys do want to connect with me more, I run a free Facebook group. It's called Intentional CEO. We have over 1,500 members in there and about 70 different countries represented inside. So all you have to do is type in Intentional CEO in the little Facebook bar, and you'll see me on the cover photo. And I have a ton of trainings pinned at the top about how to market, how to start your business, what you should know about selling online, selling on social media, pivoting your offers, especially right now. And that's pretty much the wrap up on me.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, please make sure that everyone puts their contact information and your Facebook page into the chat log so people will be able to contact with you later. Chris, let's go.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris. I'm with DadenLLC. We create custom software such as web applications and mobile apps. We feel we're different because we fully immerse ourselves in being involved in every step of the process, from planning and architecture all the way through to the deployment and maintenance of any software we create. I'm heavily involved in the Orange County ecosystem. Our team handles both enterprise and very small projects. We all have to start somewhere. My first venture in my very first software company started in high school and early college. So I'm a younger entrepreneur and software executive, and in order to contribute to the community, I know that it would have been useful when I was at this stage as well in high school or college. Our company is offering a free 1-hour virtual whiteboarding innovation session that we normally charge about $1,500 for to help you all plan your software concept and help set you up for success. So if you're interested in that, you can go to DadenLLC.com, reference in our contact form that you were attending today's event, and we'll be sure to get you scheduled. So I look forward to contributing my technology executive experience to the panel today.
Beautiful. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for being here. I think this is great. To everyone who is viewing this show right now, please add your questions into the chat. We are going to be having a Q&A at the end of this, so I will make sure to get to everyone's questions. And the more the merrier. I think we're going to have a lot of insight here. So let's jump right into it. First question. Here's my first question. Let's get into it. In times of volatility, maybe like this one, when you have to pivot or totally transition in your career, how do you decide your own personal true north? In other words, what guides your career and business decisions in times that are extremely uncertain? Let's go in the same order. Reina, go ahead.
So I think that you have to know what your values are and what you want. For instance, with everything I do, it's for peace and prosperity for myself and for the world. And so whether I am doing coaching or doing corporate aviation in a sustainable fashion, which is the direction I go when I'm in aviation, it's all still for the same goal. So maybe you have to pivot your business. Maybe you're not doing exactly what you thought you were going to do, especially in times like these. You know, maybe the industry you thought you were going to be in is suddenly unable to digitize for some reason, or you know, you're not able to go in that way. But if you know your true goal of, okay, I want to create peace and prosperity for myself and for the planet, what else does that? Then you can easily see, okay, there are plenty of things that do that. And you can kind of, what I have people do is I have them go through a mental inventory of what do I like doing? And all the way down to like sleeping, right? Like everything that you like doing, just write a list. Like I like sleeping, I like surfing, you know, and how could I make money doing that? And, you know, you could come, oh, I could do sleep tests, you know, like, and you can just come up with the most ridiculous stuff, but a few of those, say 100 things will stick. But if you know, again, your ultimate goal of what that is, then you can know, okay, these certain things create the peace and prosperity for myself and for the world that I'm looking to do. And so then in these times of uncertainty, just like Brian was saying, as far as getting a lot of lemons, if we are creative types, if we're entrepreneurs solve problems. And so the more problems we have, the more work we get to do, the more opportunities we have as creative types. So I encourage people really no matter what you do, whether you're in a job or you're an entrepreneur, work that creative muscle. Just solve problems all the time, because you're going to become instrumental in a company or in your own company if you know how to see things, know the goal, focus on it, and be able to pivot and solve problems.
Yes, I agree. TJ.
Cool. So I think a lot of people are going to kind of talk about kind of being introspective, looking at yourself. And I think there are two things to keep in mind. And this is something we talk to a lot of our students about before jumping into a boot camp and making this career change. Is one, have you gotten the important things in your life in order? One of the toughest things about any uncertain time is the fact that there's so much going on. And in a time like this, as much as we would love to say, hey, go find a new job, hey, go learn something new. Well, first make sure let's say you've got kids, their childcare, their daycare is taken care of, their summer plans are taken care of. Make sure you've got, your health, your meals, fitness schedule kind of figured out as well. Because in uncertainty and when you're trying to do something new and finding a true north, you're adding something to your plate. So get everything figured out first, and then try some things. I think there's this really big misconception about passion that people just know it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that what may seem like a passion at first may not end up being a career passion, or, what seemed like a passion at one time may not be a passion that you have in your life 4 or 5 years later. So try things out. One of the things we always have students start with is there's so many online tutorials and free classes that you can take. Do one of those. And if when you hit the wall, it isn't enjoyable, you aren't thinking to yourself, how can I run through this wall or around it? It's probably not your true north, because if that's the first instance of you getting knocked down and then trying to get back up again in this passion of yours, it might not be a passion. So I'll leave with that and then let some other people share some advice.
Good insight. Joanne.
So I have two thoughts, and I'll be speaking from both a perspective of healthcare and also a student. I definitely echo the idea of sitting down and prioritizing and writing down what your values are, but making sure that you separate those thoughts from expectations of someone else, and ensuring that those are your thoughts and solely your thoughts. But the other flip sides would be for really being empathetic and fundamentally understanding the needs and behavior of your target audience or customer that you want to serve, and listening more than you actually speak. So to reiterate things that we've heard before, offering to help or being the first to offer vulnerability to open hard conversation, and then using that as a means to building your network and building a runway for your current position that would closer align you to your passions, your skills, and your goals. And ultimately, doing all of those factors and really building an environment that surrounds you in a space that helps you get to that goal. And that environment could be things, it could be the space that you live in, but it also is very important in the sense of the people that you fill your life with, and people who would advocate for you, who will be your accountability as well as your accountability. So a person who would support you, but also still challenge your thoughts and challenge your pattern sort of habits that may be causing you to not really be at your true north. And another aspect of that would be just to be vocal about your ideas with these individuals, or even using social media to be able to gauge what sticks and what fails. Really asking people who aren't just your friends of their thoughts, and being able to uniquely combine that into your own, and using that as a platform to move forward with where your business or your career should go. So really listening to your audience and listening to your people.
John.
Wonderful. I just will probably echo a few things that some of the others had said, but I think in this times that we're dealing with right now, I look at it in a couple of different ways. Is it time to find your true north and where you want to head, or is it just something that's temporary? When we think about all the challenging times we've gone through, the recession, the bubble burst in 2000, all these things were temporary to an extent. And I think, Brian had mentioned this as some of the soft skills, but I think adaptability is really important, right? And that's something that's going to really stand out with a lot of individuals at this point. And so do we need to look at, hey, I need to take some different approaches and some alternative choices that may not be my end goal or my dream job to kind of get through these challenging times. But I think as Reina had mentioned, we also need to find, whether it be, you could define it as passion and maybe even a step down from that, is it something that we really enjoy or something that we are happy doing, all right? And so maybe it's not that ultimate passion, as TJ mentioned, right? It might change along the lines. And so experiencing some of these different opportunities and saying, well, maybe that wasn't something I would do, but let me try that. Let me, get exposed to that different type of career, that different type of industry that might lead to a passion, that might lead to something that you really enjoy. And so I think we need to find what are those things that we enjoy. And again, like Brian had mentioned, I've got some teenage sons as well that are trying to figure out what they want to do. And so getting exposure to different opportunities that create that happiness. And, I think understanding maybe what those things are that we like to do. Do we like working with people? Do we like working with animals? Do we like serving people? Do we like cooking? Do we like the food industry? So finding some of those things that create enjoyment. And then, as many mentioned, can we talk to others? Can we network? Can we experience some of those different career opportunities to see really what's going to drive our passion to guide us in the direction that we might enjoy most?
Julie.
Yeah, so I feel like this is good because we're all kind of saying the same thing, so we must be on the right page. What I teach how to do is you really want to look at 3 things when finding your true north that can, you enjoy doing, but you can also get paid for doing it, because at the end of the day, you have to pay your light bill. So that is, what do you want to do? Super important. That's kind of what everyone is saying about finding your passion. What do you enjoy doing? The second one is, where are your natural talents at? Where are your natural talents at? Are you math whiz, analytical? Are you a practitioner? You words based, all of that stuff. So where are your natural talents at, and what are the needs of the marketplace? Because you can have both of those things, but if it's not a need of the marketplace, then that's where you're going to experience a disconnect about making it an actual job. So you want to be able to look at all those 3 things, and kind of like Reina said, we can be in a really good point. Like you, Matthew, your question was like, how do you find your true north in times of turmoil? Well, an entrepreneur's job is just to solve problems. And what we have right now in our world is a lot of problems. So again, that ends up being the marketplace's needs. So start to look at, what do you want to do, where your natural talents at, and what are the needs of the marketplace. And when you get all those together, I feel like you have a really strong, solid path to move ahead. And then one other tip that I have that I do with a lot of my clients whenever they're making a decision is, what would you choose to do if you really removed all of the other voices? Maybe all of the voices that say this is a stupid idea. Maybe you have parents that are pushing you to a certain industry. Any doubts that you have, just what would you naturally do? And it's good for you just to say, you're just pretending right now. You're just imagining right now, and get out a sheet of paper and do it. Because if you're just pretending, then you feel like it's not real, and you don't have to look at all those stuff. Like Reina said, just brainstorm it out. But really, you want to be able to distinguish what is your voice and what is everyone else's voice. And then the 3 things that I talked about.
Thank you. Lastly, Chris.
Yeah, great. What I love about these panels is how we get such a holistic approach to the topic, because we have people commenting from a personal perspective on how to handle your feelings through the process. From my perspective, as one of many executives that have been navigating the turmoil for the past few months, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is to just kind of slow down and take decisions intentionally. Make sure you factor your values in every circumstance. And the reason why it's important to slow down in these scenarios is because with the turmoil comes, significant uncertainty. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to navigate that process. It just means that you have to think about the various possibilities that come into play when making those types of decisions. So first and foremost, take some time. We're all entrepreneurs. We work quickly. We're very agile, and we're proud to do so. But one of the things that really benefited me these past few months is, as an executive, taking time to be intentional with my decisions, weigh the various factors, and then move forward when I feel confident that I've considered many of the things that we didn't have to consider this time in January or late last year. Everybody has lots of different opportunities that they're pursuing at the height of business. So, the end of last year probably looks a lot different than your March of 2020 when the pandemic started picking up. So take an inventory of the opportunities that you're looking at and what you've been doing. For any of the companies I'm involved in, we've taken a strong approach to planning and trimming the fat of things that may be a little less advantageous to do right now. So definitely take an inventory of your initiatives. It does not mean eliminate innovation or eliminate the additional studying or curriculum that's going to make your business better for the long run, but it does mean focus on the opportunities that provides the most value for your business. And where I normally find help in these difficult times making decisions is knowing that when I dwindle that list down to the key factors that really are core to the company, core to your values, it quickly reminds you that you're on the right path. It helps you make those decisions once you dwindle that list down and be more intentional with your decisions. And I've heard a lot of optimistic things from the panel so far. It's absolutely true. Chase your passion, make sure that you are doing meaningful work and you're aligning with your values. But I also want to contribute a pragmatic perspective from that of an entrepreneur. As Julie just said about paying your bills and keeping your lights on, I think that many of us have probably hit the spreadsheets in the past few months, and we've looked at revenue and we've looked at expenses, and we're looking to be agile and adjust. I definitely want to continue to encourage that. I think that we have a whole new expectation of what a valid expense should be. I think the whole business world has really trimmed expenses down. A lot of people going remote with their workforce for many obvious reasons. I mean, it's a bit of a shakeup. So I just say go with it. Take some time to make decisions intentionally. And yeah, I think we do need to put our passions and our values at the front of the line, but at the same time, keep those financial expectations and goals in mind alongside it. I'm more of the pragmatic entrepreneur from that perspective, and I think it's important not to forget that as you go.
When you were talking about looking at your spreadsheet, every single panelist started nodding, and I think that is, yes, we're all doing that same thing. So I think that's dead on. I also in this break have read a book that I think is pretty much talking about all the same things that you guys are. Design Your Life. That was a great book and really helpful to anyone who is trying to figure it out. It walks you through a lot of the same steps that people had talked through, and it made a good impact for me, so I'd recommend it. Okay, next question. In a changing market, with some doors closing and new ones opening, what opportunities should people be focusing on now and looking into the future? And I would like to spin this specifically to your industries if possible. Let's switch it up now. I just changed it up. Julie, let's start with you this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So I help entrepreneurs grow their business online. So I had quite a few clients, and there's a reason, not just because there was COVID shutdown. There's a lot of reasons why people have already been, like the freelance industry has massively gone up. Part of that, I know for myself, I was working as a behavioral specialist before I started my own business. I had my degree and I still had a waitress on top of that. And that's really what led me into starting my business, was because I wasn't getting paid enough for the work that I was doing. The work I was doing was good, it was transformational, and it still didn't align. So we've already been seeing this shift into people taking out that middleman and it just having clients come directly towards them. Obviously, there's new skills in that. Like, you need to learn how to market. You need to learn how to sell. You can't just be good at what you do. You start wearing all the hats of what a business owner does. So that's already been a shift I've seen, but also having your business online will reduce expenses of some of the like brick and mortar expenses that you would have. And I had clients, I did well during coronavirus because I had clients who they were working in a gym and they were a fitness trainer in the gym. So how do you take your program and develop it online? But developing an online business, obviously it has its risks in it as well, but you can start it for a minimal amount if you are really profiting off of your brain and from the neck up. So there's a lot of opportunities to be able to sell there. And there are ways where you can make it more recession proof, because for me, even if my client level would have gone down, I'm able as the owner to pivot faster, to understand market trends, but also the recession proofing comes from I'm not still paying for the lights to be on, I'm not still paying rent space. I really can run my business from a computer and from online. So that's a shift I've already been pushing before coronavirus for a lot of people that have come my way, because you can be your best job security. And I think especially now we've learned from just the times being so unstable that we need to be the ones to secure our future. And I've been saying that again before coronavirus, and I think coronavirus really just put the nail right in there. So that's would be what I'd say.
Thank you. John.
And I'm going to kind of look at it just from an entrepreneurial perspective and entrepreneurship. And I think generally speaking, some of the things we need to look at, and if it's different industries that you may want to get into, are what buyer behaviors are doing and how are those shifting. As we see, and Julie just talked about, if it's going to an online marketplace, if you're transitioning your business online, if buyers are looking for more products to be delivered, more services to be delivered, where maybe we went to them, we're finding that the barbers are coming to our homes now, right? And so, what are our buyers really expecting and what are they looking for? And so if we can find a business like that's going to drive into the economic necessities as well as some of those economic growths. So some industries that kind of pop in mind as we're going and turning to a lot of technology and a lot of virtual. Cybersecurity is blowing up. That industry is huge. So that's an opportunity where, we even talked about Zoom and some of the potential insecurities of Zoom. Well, that's an area that I think there's a demand and a need for. Obviously teleconferencing, and we know Zoom, we know Meets, we know Teams. Is there an opportunity for much more competition as the demand is changing to more of a virtual environment? Obviously logistics and delivery, and maybe you start that small business of, we've got an Uber Eats and Postmates and all of those, but is there an opportunity for a delivery type of business there? So, data, market research, that's huge as well, but we need to look at where are things shifting as we're going more virtual, as we're more of a, on-demand, immediate gratification. And I laugh at my sons when they order something online and it's a 2-day delivery. No, I'm paying extra. I want it in an hour. Well, you haven't had it for, all your life, and now you need it in an hour. Well, those are the buyer behaviors, and that's what certain generations are demanding. And so finding those little niches, I think, can kind of help to lead us in directions of if that opportunity, if you were in the restaurant industry or something that's closing, now what are the opportunities opening up based on new buyer behaviors?
I do agree with that. It was cool to see restaurants sort of turning into grocery stores and things like that when this all first happened, and they started selling a lot of the products that they were previously making. And I thought that was a really good, quick pivot to deal with the given circumstance. Reina, please.
So I wanted to just piggyback on what Julie was saying, as far as like having different hats as an entrepreneur. I know that there are some people watching this who are very entrepreneurial, and then there's other people who that's just never going to be something that they're comfortable with. That kind of risk, that kind of roller coastering is not ideal for them. And I used to think, because I've been an entrepreneur pretty much since I started working, almost since I was 19 years old, that everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur, that everybody should do this. And I had a brother who just was very much like the job track. He wasn't interested in that at all. So I would really recommend, if people are thinking about entrepreneurship and they're not sure, a book like The E-Myth Revealed, where it talks about being the technician and the different hats that an entrepreneur wears. Because as Julie was saying, if you're just good at what you do, but you don't have the other parts of the manager and, being able to do all the parts of the business, entrepreneurship may not be the best path. And I think when we're entrepreneurs, we often, we just talk about entrepreneurship, and for us, that's the best path. And then I want to also address, even if entrepreneurship is the best path, sometimes, I think John was saying, sometimes you're going to need to take another job because entrepreneurship's a little slow right now, and so you may need to go, I think I worked at a hair salon once when my business was a little bit slow because I just needed to pay the bills, but I was still building my business. It wasn't at the point of being really stable yet, but it got there. And it wasn't time to give up on the business. It was just, I had to supplement it a little bit. And I want to go back to, we all talked about our passions as well. And we all want to, the ultimate goal is to have multiple streams of income. And so a lot of us are passionate about many things. And so like I've been talking a lot lately, I have the personal development and speaking side of my business. And then I also work in aviation, right? And sustainable aircraft for private aviation. And these are two different passions, two different revenue streams. And so when, one can be doing, like right now, aviation's doing really well, or private aviation, because nobody wants to get on a commercial aircraft at the moment. And so that's doing really well in our industry. So I have that other stream of income to lean on. And so I just want to say, we want to have, like, think about your passions, and you can have multiple going on, but I would suggest, especially those who are younger out there, get really good at one and then bring on the multiples. And so, you can always come back to that one and rework it. And then as far as industries, I really think sustainability is going to be a great industry in the future. We look at the UK, they have legislated into law that by 2050, they're going to be at zero emissions. And so we see these trends happening throughout the world, and America, when we'll get there eventually, where we create laws to zero emissions as well with the rest of the world. So I think sustainability is going to be a big component. And as well, I think the aftermath of this pandemic, I should say, sanitation is going to be a big thing for people too. Just making sure that we're being safe, that we're not exposing ourselves. We look at, post-pandemic in 1918, and we look at post like tuberculosis. People were very cautious about their sanitation for a long time. So I think that, viruses aren't going away. This one will, hopefully. And, but people are going to be looking at sustainability and sanitation. And we're also becoming a lot more connected in this world, and a lot more woke and aware. So things that promote the global good, I think, are going to be industries that people are supporting in the future.
I agree with all of that. And I have to say, I really loved how fresh the air was when no cars were on the road. Just throwing that out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, we've been using that in our aviation marketing, is, going towards those sustainable aircrafts, and the ones that are putting out 85% less emissions. It costs more, but it's worth it.
It is
and
worth
getting
it.
Companies like Google and Apple to sign on with those kind of things, because they're out there being sustainable, right? And as we pay more now, it brings the demand up, which lowers the price. And so, these are things that Julie will tell you, all the psychology of why people buy, or why people spend more, actually, to make sure we have a clean earth to live on, and our kids one day, and all these kinds of things. So thanks, Matt.
Yeah, we definitely need one of those. Having a place to live on is pretty vital. So yeah, that's going to be even more important than a pandemic for sure.
Exactly.
Chris, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I think everyone's done a great job covering some of the external focuses of what we should look at. I'd like to take a moment and encourage everybody to kind of look internally at opportunities within your organization. I think that's something that, when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of people are watching revenue numbers. They're watching clients maybe cancel or pause spending. I want to encourage everybody to really look internally at your processes. There's no doubt that in my industry, in custom software and technology, we are constantly evaluating the ability to scale the technology as more workload is put on the remote systems as people transition to remote work. We're looking at creative ways that we can keep in touch, so that social factor of having a role at our company is not diminished. Our work culture is reinforced with tools like Slack and other tools that really internally are so critical to the functioning of our organization and our clients' organization. So I think we covered quite a bit externally. Internally, evaluate what tools you're using, evaluate your accountability tools, evaluate your work culture and the values of your company from a remote perspective, and evaluate what it means for your organization to make sure you can adhere to those core principles now that we're in a different type of environment. There's no doubt that the modernization and transformation of our processes will need to occur internally in order to succeed externally. So if that's something I could contribute to the conversation here, it's that moment to reflect internally, balance that with your revenue goals, etc. But when we take a moment to absorb what's happening and make the best decisions and make those decisions intentionally, it's critical to value both internal and external equally.
Thank you. Joanne.
So I'll be touching on two perspectives. One is sort of my personal, but the other being healthcare. Healthcare kind of has a target on its head right now because of what has happened in the world, unfortunately, or fortunately, perhaps in our views, as we say, closing doors, opening new ones. The advancement of technology will always be of interest, especially from a medical device industry, from birth till death. We're looking at new tech that can decrease time and resources needed for hospital stays, even just reducing procedure times from 5 minutes to 1 minute or 1 hour to 5 minutes. That builds up in terms of time that saves the doctors, but also individuals who have to go in for that procedure. Also improving sort of like our ancient tools, if you will, like stethoscopes, walkers that our older generations have to use, and maybe we may one day be there. But really, even as simple as reducing the number of nights that we have to stay in the hospital if we're not sure if we have to stay in the first place, and increasing our ways of diagnosing and being more accurate from our diagnosing. And even as important as, getting our premature babies out to their families faster and within a safe timeline. So that would be sort of the healthcare perspective of the advancement of technology. But other perspectives that are uprising, that are niches that are opening really holistically, our current structure of healthcare, the amount of money that is spent and the sort of outcomes that we're getting is not manageable for the years to come. And really the technologies that are coming out and the structures that are sort of now being reformed or should be reformed or need to be pushed to be reformed, really not chasing fixing symptoms or fixing when something is broken, but rather have a greater emphasis on preventative care. So ways to diagnose before you even know, or at least have a way that you integrate lifestyle, diet, sleeping habits, the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the way you surround yourself with your people, of individuals who you want to be surrounded by. How does that affect your health, and how we can integrate that to your day-to-day life? And so with that comes science policy, and how we can politically transform the healthcare structure by taking data that we've collected during this pandemic, and be able to push and advocate for new policies that would help improve our healthcare holistically, such that we are more efficient and that we are ready for future emergency situations like we are here. But other rising niches, if you're interested in exploring healthcare, would be digital technology, telemedicine, online therapy, functional, non-traditional types of practices are also increasing as we're moving away from just putting drugs into our body to fix everything, but now to look at our lives holistically. So that's much more of a healthcare perspective. I'll pivot a little to more of sort of, I guess, an individual perspective. So I'm working on my PhD, and I have the luxury as well as the fortune of being able to pursue it. But at the same time, I realize that it might not work out in the end. And so really for individuals who have the bandwidth to be able to hustle with side jobs, I do multimedia video editing, I do podcasting and recording and editing, that's the microphone and the headphones. I help run graduate professional success events at my university. And on the very, very side, I do art character design for a business, and I take commissions for that, as well as streaming. So I have found that not all doors will be open simultaneously, and I think Reina may not support my my multifaceted use of my time, but I've also found that in case something does go wrong with my PhD, I always have a backup for something else that I'm also equally as passionate for. So those are my 2 cents on both healthcare and an individual aspect.
I actually think Reina would largely support exactly what you just said, because you're not, I think to her point, you need to be very good at something so that you can make a push forward. And if you're too scattered, then you're really not going to be able to be a strong, effective leader, because you're not the master of that expertise. But at the same time, if you are very good at something, podcasting, video production, these are additional revenue opportunities and ways that you can stabilize yourself to be able to explore and try new things. And that also can bring in new opportunities and new resources that you previously didn't know. So it's casting a wider net, and it's feeding those other passions that we have, so we can continue to, I guess I've always said that we are the combination of our life experiences. So what we bring from our life is what we bring into our work. So if we're just doing the same thing over and over again, we eventually are going to stagnate in some way if we're not replenishing and nurturing our appreciation of the life that surrounds us. So doing those things, I think, are really just feeding that for you. And I think that was a brilliant insight. So thank you very much. Who do we want to go to next? TJ.
Creative muscle.
Oh, sorry, Reina, please.
I just, because you brought me into it, like she's really exercising her creative muscles, and like a lot of those things that she mentioned could actually tie together in one thing if she wanted them to. And so she's like really exercising her mind and problem solving in all of that. So whether any of it becomes a career, sorry, just want to give my 2 cents there.
I'd be curious how many entrepreneurs have like one sole thing going. I feel like usually there's several irons in the fire, and we're all trying to move them forward. TJ, please tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. So from an education perspective, kind of what we're seeing now and what we think's going to happen in the future. So even before COVID hit, there was already a drop in the amount of admissions to traditional four-year education, and the main two contributors for that were the student debt crisis that we're all very familiar with, and then the limitations on kind of international relations. And so we had less abroad students, international students applying to these four-year universities. So you already had a little bit of pressure on, colleges and traditional education to relook at how that they were kind of meeting the needs of their students and kind of providing what was an expectation. One of the biggest issues with colleges and universities and traditional education is we're asking 18 and 19-year-olds to make a decision as to what to study. And then, of course, this is going to be your career. Well, how often do you go study one thing and then it just happens to pan out that what's waiting on the other side isn't what you were told or isn't what you saw, in, a TV show. I mean, I've majored in marketing, and marketing is not Mad Men. Mad Men looked really fun. Or, same thing with, working on the finance side. And so we started to see a little bit of a shift. A couple of the things that had started to pop up previously, one of the big ones is Moocs, which stands for Massive Open Online Course. And that's going to be something, where you might go online, you might go to Udemy or a Lynda, and you can take one of these classes and you're doing it from the comfort of your home. It's typically self-paced. Unfortunately, the success rate of those is horrendous. It's something like 3 or 5, maybe 3 and 5%. It's somewhere bounce around there, that students who actually start one and finish it. How many of us have started something, didn't have somebody holding us accountable, and then, kind of fell off the map. And so what we've seen is, and what we kind of went through is, how do we open up this learning and we reach more people, but we do so in a way that gives them the existing kind of experience that they had of a classroom. And what we did when, COVID hit is we transitioned to virtual classrooms. And what we learned is you kind of have this balance between allowing people to do it from home, but still having the accountability of an instructor and somebody there to answer your questions. And so from the education space, I expect that we're going to see a big change with that. We're going to see a little bit more hands-on with some of the, instructors and professors. It's not going to be as many people who kind of sit there, tune out, you really have to be, kind of hands-on and keeping people moving, because when people are at home, when they have nobody over their shoulder, it becomes a little bit easier to fall back to our comfort zones instead of maybe doing the homework or the project that we were assigned. And what'll be interesting to see is what happens with the California state system, which, has said that their fall classes are going to be, online and virtual. And so having that balance, and, one, reaching more students, but at the same time, making sure that the students who already were maybe not putting in 100% effort aren't falling through the cracks. So that's what we're kind of seeing now with education. The other big thing too is less and less companies are requiring 4-year degrees. You're still going to have a few different industries where it's absolutely necessary to go get that degree, whether it's, law or, health and medicine, or, something along the lines of structural engineering. These are all things that if it doesn't go right, these are life and death situations that we're dealing with. But a lot of other, aspects of life and what you'd be going into can be learned either online or through networking or on the job. And so, for people who are kind of wondering what to do now, you don't have to take, the jump of, I'm going to go back and get an MBA. I'm going to go back and get a whole new degree. That's where community colleges, fit in great, is they have these classes. And Brian talked about it a little bit before this, where, it's a very affordable class. You can see, how much you enjoy it and continue down that path. And then of course decide, hey, this is right for me. This isn't right for me. From a personal standpoint, I think this is a great opportunity for obviously people to look, internally and see, well, where am I now and where do I want to be in the future? And then take the things where you want to be. So for example, if you want to see yourself in a leadership position in a company, or if you want to be in a place where you have a better work-life balance, well, you're going to have to improve upon your soft skills. That's a guarantee. Soft skills are going to apply to every company. So why not work on your communication? In the chat, Kathleen had mentioned adaptability. It's one of the top 5 in-demand skills from a hiring perspective. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget, is that soft skills can apply to almost every single company and almost every single job. Hard skills can be learned. And so improving, once again, those areas that you aren't super strong in, whether that's, time management, whether it's creative thinking, problem solving, collaboration, working with other people, can go a really long way, because you can take those into any endeavor after this, whether it's going to work for a company full time or it's starting on your own entrepreneurial journey. I think something that a lot of entrepreneurs, kind of talk about and really realize eventually is you're always selling, you're always marketing, you're always having to try to work and try to find, who that next client is, or, adjusting to what the market needs are, because there's almost always going to be competition as well. And if you don't think you have competition, well, then you really, really need to look back at your company and think about, well, what other opportunities, do my clients potentially have? So, personally, I think once again, investing in yourself, taking that stuff where you can grow, and no matter whether it's, once again, a job, whether it's even your work, your family, life, a lot of those things can be applied as well. So you don't necessarily have to invest in a class, but there are so many opportunities out there, whether it's the community college system, whether it's these online, massive, open online courses. Heck, I tell students, if y'all are coming to us and haven't tried out coding yet, go do it somewhere else. Do it for free before you're paying to learn how to do it. Because there's a lot of people who are fully self-taught. But there is also that point where you say, you know what, this is as far as I can get on my own. Okay, now I need somebody else here to help me out as well.
I think that's a great point. I think it's also true that the open online classes are a great way to just kind of dip your toe in the water and explore new things and try. I mean, it's practically a free thing. Often it's free, and you can just kind of continue to level up your skill. I usually will do a module or 2 in the morning, just waking up. I like doing it. I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long I want to take, and I'm just constantly learning new things from different walks and industries. And so maybe they correlate and maybe they don't, but it keeps my mind active and it allows me to continue to poke and explore at what I may or may not be interested in. So for people that are budget limited or who are considering going back to school, I mean, it's nice to explore and continue. There's a lot of resources out there. Okay, so we have like 10 minutes left on this before we jump into the Q&A, and I have a bunch of questions I still want to ask. Let's see how rapid fire we can make this. Maybe everyone just gives a quick one thought here, but we're just going to jump to it. So rapid fire. In a post-COVID world, what is a new essential for your industry? We're going to go in order, Reina.
I think in my industry, just as much as everybody else's, presence. And of course, you would definitely attest to that. But we are so wrapped up in our phones. We're so wrapped up in spinning to 5,000 things that we have to do, that to be successful in any business, whether you're an entrepreneur or working for somebody else, to be very present, to be listening, to be observing, and to be able to come up with creative ideas, because you're not rushing off into the grocery list or whatever comes next or what happened 5 minutes ago. When you can become very present, that's what's going to give you success in post-COVID-19, especially because we've become so reliant on technology that we can often, turn off our videos and be playing on our phone or doing something else. But to be really present is going to make you really stand out at this time.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you, Reina. Julie, I'm happy to hear with you too. What's your thought?
Yeah, so number one is take care of the clients you have. If you do have a business, it's easier to keep a client than it is to get a new client. And if you can get a client even at a really low rate, it's called foot in the door technique, get them in at a low rate, they're already a buyer, they're more likely to buy in the future. And then kind of answering one of the Q&As I see is like areas for opportunities. So what became a must in my business and what I saw in the last recession, what I'm seeing in COVID is people really want to buy two things: anything that makes them feel in control and anything that makes them feel better. So if you're looking for opportunity in your own business, start to ask how you can already make your new offers something that's going to make them feel better or in control. Or if you're looking for an opportunity, look in those areas. Examples are look at Lysol, look at Purell. Those were things at the time that made people feel really in control. I know in the last recession, sales that went up was in lipstick and nail polish. It might sound weird, but it was a small price item that made someone have that quick fix of feeling good. So I had a lot of my hairdressing clients, or people who cut hair, people who did hair, they went all product-based sales, and I helped them create a sold-out product-based launch because they couldn't cut hair, but they could create packages that really was like at-home care for you to make people feel good. So I would say looking for opportunity, looking for one of those areas. If you're already in business, look at how you can make your offers make people feel good or feel in control.
Beautiful. TJ.
So this is more for people who are going through a job search. LinkedIn, there is no question about it. If you are not on LinkedIn as a job seeker, you aren't searching for a job. Couple statistics, about 90 to 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn on a daily basis. Reason for this is your resume is going to be one page. It's a snapshot of your career. Your LinkedIn shows so much more of your professional presence. We're still in a really, as much as we all know about LinkedIn, it's still early on in LinkedIn's kind of growth. It's a very safe platform as well. Feel free to post things on there. You aren't going to get trolled. And if you get trolled, let me know. I want to go find that person. Another big thing too, there's 660 million people on LinkedIn, and only 51% of those people actually have a complete profile. So taking the time to go through, putting your profile into a place where it showcases your skills, your strengths. It doesn't have to be just what you did at your last job, but it can be those classes you took online, a post that you found really interesting. And so taking the time to grow that network, because a lot of times the easiest way to find a job and the most effective way to find a job that you're happy with is through your network. And if you don't have that network already internally, build that through LinkedIn.
Thank you. And Chris.
I think what's very important is being able to give yourself credit for what you have achieved to this point. I think that when turmoil happens, the best thing to do is kind of evaluate and take inventory and give yourself credit for what you've done so far. Definitely keep an eye out for opportunities by asking your clients. I challenge everybody to create some new strategies themselves. Like one of my personal strategies is to touch each of my clients every day. I love what Julie said about, a client that you have today is worth so much, and just getting a client is worth something right now. A mentor of mine recently told me that Chris, the idea of a successful company for the next few months is going to be a company that survives and is able to continue doing business. And I think that leveled my expectations. As an entrepreneur, you read all these, various education mediums, you listen to your podcast, and you're like, grow and scale, right? Everybody's focused on that. But in reality, it's right now just, stay alive and value your clients and create more opportunities to touch your clients and value the progress that you've made today, and don't let it slip away. So I think that's really important experience for myself.
Thank you. Joanne.
Yeah, to echo from what I said earlier about healthcare really focusing on preventative care now, decreasing risk factors by changing lifestyle, diet, etc., as well as higher levels of sanitation and hygiene practices, especially at restaurants, gyms, pools, wherever you are essentially in crowded spaces. That's like a hub for bacteria to grow. And we might even be seeing more encouragement of the use of masks during influenza season, as we're seeing the impact now of COVID-19. But on a more sort of personal level, my sort of new essential is really reaching out to individuals who I haven't talked to in a long time, realizing that it might be the last or first time that I'll ever be able to have a conversation with them. Even individuals who I wasn't very close with, I wanted to sort of just sit down and have 20 to 30 minutes with, who I normally wouldn't go out of my way to because I had the assumption that I would be able to see them or talk with them in the future. But with the light of COVID and how quickly death can come for others, it was a good reminder that not everything is eternal and that we should cherish the people that we have in our lives.
Gratitude. Gratitude is core. It's essential to everything. Adaptability and gratitude. All right, moving on. John.
All right, just from an educational standpoint, one of the things I think that are essential from a learning perspective is the entrepreneurial mindset. And I know Reina said, and I agree, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. But when we think of the term intrapreneur, so these are individuals that have the mindset that, are adaptable, that love solving problems, that, have the grit, but they don't want to start their own business. They want to go work for a company. But these skill sets, as Brian had mentioned, these soft skills are so essential to employers as well. And taking the time to kind of learn that, and you can learn the entrepreneurial mindset. That's a lot of what we teach, at the college. Brian is kind of doing that in a sense with VitaLink. But again, developing and learning those skills, educating yourselves in those particular soft skills that will take you to the next level when it's maybe time to get another job or when you're going to open your other business. And the other essential, which we keep talking about, again, networking, talking to people, just like Joanne said, reach out to those you haven't talked to in a while, network with those that you know, that are friends, that you don't, that might be in your industry or different industries, and build that network, just as LinkedIn does as well, but also do it on a face-to-face or virtual level as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have exactly 19 minutes left. We're going to move into some Q&A. We have a bunch of questions here, so I think maybe the best way to do it is just to have a couple of people maybe pick and choose. If you want to, just throw your hand up. I can see you all, so we'll make it quick that way. The first one comes from Sam, and he is asking about, and in light of the current events, what are some ways that you as business owners and entrepreneurs are striving to be inclusive of people of different backgrounds, skin colors, sexual orientations, etc.? What approach from an ethical responsibility standpoint of being inclusive while hiring, networking, and collaborating? So what are kind of some of your thoughts on what might be, what we're looking at? Obviously, the world is changing in this capacity very much as well. So how do we help to rise up and, the most vulnerable amongst us? That's the topic of the panel in general. Yeah, Chris, you're first.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very proud to say that in light of all the recent events, I'm definitely, trying to be as aware and conscious as possible on how it impacts business. So I'm learning every day alongside a lot of other people. So I'm very proud and happy to say that. I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that our contracting roles, our part-time, full-time opportunities, everything that we have available is shared through a very wide medium of outlets, not just necessarily the same job posting channels. I've been educated recently that there may be, systemic biases throughout certain types of job posting mediums and forms that would prevent the opportunity for very qualified and endearing candidates to reach access to those. So that's something that I'm learning and engaging with. So just encouraging business owners out there and everybody hiring or looking, right now, even a contracting role is valuable right now. I mean, late last year, everyone was looking for the full-time employment role. They were looking for benefits. They were negotiating hard. But I think to value all of the opportunity we have is important, and make sure that you get those opportunities in a wide variety of mediums as far as posting the job or reaching out to people. I've been trying to engage directly with folks at community colleges, organizations and groups that can post those opportunities inside intranets like the WeWork community networks and other places, just to make sure that the posting isn't just going down the standard job path. So I would encourage everybody to get creative with the exposure for your roles to help, make sure you go against any type of systemic bias that may be present. That the biggest challenge for me is you don't even know it's there until you really educate yourself on it and you really work towards it. So I'm happy to say and proud to say that I'm becoming more educated on that and embracing any innovation that people have to offer.
I think that's another core aspect is I think every person has implicit bias in some capacity, and the more we educate ourselves and become aware and expand our view of how we see things, it will help us to be more inclusive in all capacities, both on a human level and as a business owner or entrepreneur, or as a coworker. So yes, thank you for bringing this up. Reina, you had some thoughts.
I actually grew up in like this really wonderful international school where like all people's differences were celebrated. And so my Roku show, it actually is a pretty strong, like fundamentalist Christian white Republican audience. However, I make a very strong point to bring on people of color, Native Americans, LGBTQ friendly pastors, people of different perspectives, even if my audience isn't very diverse in general, that I'm bringing different people's perspectives to say, this person's an expert in this area and they're very intelligent, and my bias that I may have had could be wrong. And I always say, like with my show, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm trying to get them to ask new questions, because you don't change someone's whole paradigm in an hour, but I can get them to ask new questions. Like, I didn't know that about the Native American plight. Maybe I should ask myself this question. I didn't know that this person was having, I wasn't woke before. What does that mean? And why should I be so? Like just asking new questions. I'm not going to shift their whole paradigm, but bringing on guests that give them a different perspective from someone that doesn't look like or think like them.
Yes. Most of these issues come from fear, and it's just what we don't know, we fear. So the more we can educate ourselves on that, the more empowered we will be. Yeah, Julie, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'll be fast. So I made a post to my audience the other day, and it said, you don't have to solve all the world's problems, but it is your responsibility to show up and serve where your gifts are needed. So I really think as a business owner, you can't be an expert on all the issues that are being impacted, but you have to know where you can show up and serve. And I'll just use myself as an example. Where I best serve is helping disadvantaged women succeed in business. So I also have to know that my gifts are needed, and it's okay for me to speak up with my voice in the industries that I work with. I've worked with clients of all races and sexualities, and that have come from all different backgrounds, that have suffered from mental illness, that have gone through abuse, that have gone through poverty. And that is where I help people succeed. And I know for me too, I wanted to keep thinking about my offers, keep thinking about what I can offer. And currently I'm running an opportunity for anyone who is either a Black female entrepreneur or a minority student, for them to sign up for my money mastery course, which is exactly what I needed in that situation when I was a student. So also, if that's anyone on here, please reach out to me.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, the next question is education-based. Are there things in the community college system that are there things the community college system is doing that could help me prep for the next step affordably? John, do you want to kick that off?
When you say next step affordably, is that a 4-year institution that they're going to? I don't quite understand
They just
that.
spoke to the community college system.
Yeah, so in terms of affordability, the community college system already is very affordable at $46 a unit. There are also other programs that are in place. There's an Advantage First, I believe it's called, where first generation, and now they've even made it where freshman students are incoming free community college. And a number of, and I don't know where this individual lives, but a number of different community college districts are offering, when you come out of high school, if you go directly into community college, there is free tuition for the first 2 years. So they'd have to check with their local community college to find out specifically that program. But I don't know if it gets any more affordable than that, if you can do free community college. There are some other small fees, but like everybody has mentioned, it gives you a great opportunity to try some of these shorter, smaller classes at a very, very affordable rate. So I'm not sure if that answered the question to the extent that he had, but
yeah,
TJ's
absolutely. TJ.
Yeah, I mean, I just got some other kind of thoughts and additional things in there too. So, obviously there is that community college, the affordability that starts out with there, but there are a lot of employers out there too that do invest in your education. I know Starbucks and McDonald's have some amazing programs put in place. And so, while it might not be the, glorious office job that a lot of people look for, that could be where you're getting your priorities figured out while you focus on your education. Something to be careful with, and I know I talked about the student debt crisis and kind of issues before. A big topic right now is ISAs, which are income share agreements. And it sounds great at first because it's free education until you get a job, and then money's taken out of your, paycheck and paid back to the school. There's a lot of fine print to those. So you really need to make sure you're looking at what could happen if you do have to leave school early, how much would be getting taken out later on. The last thing you would want to do is go through, school, get a job that you're super excited about, and then realize 15% or 12% of your salary is being taken out right away. So definitely kind of keep an eye out for that. And then there's a lot of grants as well too. So your current employer, there's companies, California has a state training grant where every company can apply for anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,500 in training, to funds that they can apply, and if it kind of aligns with their industry and business. So there's some creative ways to go through there and get some money.
Awesome. Sure. Joanne, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, although this is not exclusive to community college, but as DeviceAlliance is a nonprofit organization, as with a lot of other types of resources in terms of communities that are available out there that have free webinars, that have events like this for you to attend, these are your opportunities to network and to make those next steps, which is to find individuals that you can talk with, have a great relationship, build from that. And although you might not be looking for a job right now, you might still be a student, they might be your future boss, they might be your future business partner, or your life mentor. You don't know that until you actually build that relationship, and you continue to foster that relationship regardless of how you met them, whether that's on campus, off campus, and really just being open to other types of opportunities. I actually met a lot of my contacts while hiking. I went to a hiking group that I happen to enjoy hiking. These individuals were in the healthcare field, and we just hit it off, and we've been friends since. So there are lots of ways that you can create your network and build your next steps that don't really have to cost money, and they also don't have to be structured within your standard typical college types of lifestyle.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we have 9 minutes left, and so let's see if we can get people to pretty much give like a 1-sentence answer here, and we'll try to hit everyone with the next couple of questions. What industries are you seeing an increase in demand area of opportunity for freelancers? Who wants to jump on that one? Anyone? Chris.
So from an enterprise perspective, I'm seeing a large increase in technical project management from my perspective, because a lot of big companies are launching big internal projects while things are slow. You know, they're not worried about surviving. They're worried about optimizing and getting back out there. So although there's many others, we talked about cybersecurity and other things. To keep my answer short, technical project management is something that can be pretty self-taught, and I would encourage anybody who is organized and willing to project manage that knows a little bit about software, may be a good opportunity.
John.
I always get requests for coders, and I know you guys have talked about coding quite a bit, and as side gigs, being able to learn how to code to write an app for somebody. I can't tell you how many times I've referred people to a high school student that I know became a great coder. So coding is one, website development, and social media marketing seems to be another from a kind of a perspective of someone that's trying to do something on the side as a side gig.
Beautiful.
I'll just quickly kind of play off of that. So yes, website design, coding, all that can be tough to learn, but there's also some really easy platforms out there like WordPress and Shopify, which are built for you to build, or they're essentially built for entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs too who don't even have the time to do it. So those are great tools to start to play around with. Pretty, easy to just get going in your own project there.
Wix is another good, easy to use website development site.
Same with Squarespace. I like Squarespace a lot. And once you've made 3 sites, they give you a discount, put you in the circle. Yes, Joanne.
Yeah, also in the healthcare, every company needs to be able to get whatever product they're building into the customer's eyes, view, hands. So that means any type of promotional types of images, so medical illustration, but also medical writing. So taking complex science into something that is more generalizable, understandable for the layman, and for them to be able to see the value in something that's so complex. That's a form of communication and freelancing that a lot of individuals have been finding themselves in.
I'm going to piggyback on that. Content writing in any industry will really help people's SEO marketing go up. And so definitely content writing. I'm going to piggyback off Joanne.
Beautiful. All right, 5 minutes left. What is the most important thing to pay attention to in your industry right now? So I'm thinking like maybe a publication or a specific expert or somebody who is the most insightful point of contact or knowledge that you are thinking of right now. Reina.
I've been really paying attention to this coach called Shannon Graham. He only takes on 10 clients. I think he's above $150,000 each per year now. But he does complex problem solving beyond just the normal coaching. And I think that any of us, regardless of what industry you're going to go into, need to, work on the personal development, the creativity, and the complex problem solving that goes into creating whatever you're going to create, whether that's a job or a business.
Julie.
Yeah, this is opposite of exactly what you just asked us, but I tell my clients, do your best not to look left and right, do your best to look forward and backward. So I'm not going to list a person, but I am going to say you want to watch the trends, and the best way to also, you can look at research. I have to do that a lot and what I do about market trends, but also the best way is to test it yourself and to be able to pay attention to what is working, and if something isn't working, to do something.
Where are you
else.
looking at these market trends?
If you are a business owner and you're selling, then you need to be putting it out there. Is your product selling? For me, I'm writing a lot of sales copies in my email, on my website. So these are all analytics that I'm going to be looking at. If you are someone who's running Facebook ads for that, you want to be paying attention to that as well.
So you're saying more internal analytics, not necessarily market research in general, like Google Trends.
Yeah.
Okay. TJ.
There's the unmute button. So when it comes to Orange County tech, there really isn't a better media source out there right now, at least, than the Accelerate OC podcast that Carrie Ransom has put together. It is the who's who of, who's leading, whether it's in the education space, the technology space, what's going on in Orange County. And from a networking perspective, one of the things I think a lot of people need to keep in mind is everybody here on this panel, almost everybody who's in that participants list, we've made ourselves available. And when you listen to these podcasts, when you go to these events, find the people and just go connect with them. And that's such an easy way to get the ball rolling. So when it comes to, once again, OC Tech, Carry Ransom and Accelerate OC. And then of course, you know, groups like 1 Million Cups and OC Tech Social and all of these places where it's so easy to go out, find people, and then just listen to what they're talking about and then go from there.
Chris.
Yeah, I think processing internal, like Julie said, and external, like TJ mentioned, very important. You know, there's so many groups out there. I would say it's really easy to, you know, forego participating in those events. Really force yourself to consume the content and the information around you. I try to at least consume, you know, an hour a day. We're all very busy people, but if you consume the information from your industry, you know, I like a blend of sources. I don't necessarily follow anybody specifically. The blend is what allows me to see the patterns when I'm evaluating something. So, you know, I might follow certain blogs on Medium. I might follow certain people on Twitter and other places. I'll follow companies' social media to see what they're advertising that are close in my industry. I digest all of that. You know, I look internally to what customers are asking for. Like I said, I try to touch my customers daily since the lockdown happened. Digesting all of that, getting out there, attending events, which I would just say, you know, shortly, the event scene moved very well from, in my opinion, very well from in-person meetups to virtual meetups. So if you feel for any second that the meetup stopped happening, then you're evaluating it wrong. And if anything, I'm able to participate in more meetups because I don't have to travel as much, and I can fit it into my schedule. So definitely some advice for consuming is to just block it off in your calendar, get it off weekly, you know, and just make sure that you're prioritizing it, because that is where you're gonna fall asleep behind the wheel if you don't digest internal and external info that way.
Definitely. Joanne, we got like 30 seconds left, so I want to make sure we get to both of you and John.
Okay. Again, healthcare technology for sanitation, and maybe there's a superbug that's going to be impervious to Lysol and UV rays. So early detection, diagnosis, and policies that will standardize the way we respond to these types of epidemics. As a side note, I'm always looking to improve myself. So impact theory, health theory, sort of our podcasts by Tom Bilyeu, who are at this intersection of self-improvement, but also exploring health in a different and new way.
Thank you. Very insightful. John.
And so many resources, but just two I want to mention, and Chris said the word there. Meetups is one that I find a lot of students are not familiar with. Great place to find like-minded individuals, just like Joanne said, she found people she likes to go hiking with. Great place to find like-minded individuals. Also, a government site, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, a whole host of information on industries, what's paying well, what's growing, what's not. Great place to start if you're thinking about different types of industries to get into. So that's a good resource as well.
Beautiful.
Did I make it in time?
Yes, we did it.
Okay.
We did it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone. This is very insightful, very helpful. I hope this is impactful to everyone that's listened. Thank you for taking the time and being with us. And please make sure, if you haven't already, or if you want to again, throw all your contacts and any insight you want to do into the chat list so that everyone else can see that and be able to connect with you directly. And thank you again. I genuinely appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.